sort that little tufty bit out.
This tough, James. What's going on? We're live. We're live, and I've got a tuft.
Stop playing with your hair.
A sleeping tuft. It's the curly afro, James. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, John and James Live, where we dissect the news to bring systemic awareness and practical solutions to a fast-moving, scary world of uncertainty.
That's it, isn't it? That is it.
Yes, we do.
It doesn't get any more complicated than that, does it?
It's a crazy world out there, James, at the moment, we have to admit. We'll start off today just to touch upon my recent post. I didn't get much sleep last night, James. Recently, I've hit a bit of a, what do they call it? A golden streak, do they call it in sport, maybe? When you hit the home runs with engagement.
You're onto something.
Yeah.
Golden.
And the latest one about the war on motherhood. It's always a very controversial thing to do, isn't it? If you're especially if you're a male and you talk about anything to do with women, you're prepared to be shot down. And to be honest, I was quite naive, James. I went into that. I wrote that with the purest intentions in my heart of loving my wife, my daughters, thinking about this utopian vision of this place where we really constructed a society to look after parents so we could create and help these children flourish as human beings. So they wasn't having to go into the capitalist monster of a system and get chewed up early because they were forced to, but we had options. It's okay to love our children. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent if you have to go and give your child over at 6 months old. I've been there, I've done it. That wasn't the point. It wasn't an attack on women, motherhood. It wasn't no patriarchal oppression. And it really got a polarized response. There were some women that just got it, you know, very pleasant, lovely responses, all on one team. And there was others that really did misconstrue the actual essence of the post.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could say it was poor, maybe there was poor writer. I'm not a copywriter. You know, that's not my bag. I write about things that I'm interested in. But it was just very, yeah. Engagement's been super high in the last week of posts. You know, the last one got what, 2,500 likes, 130,000 impressions, which is crazy numbers.
Yeah.
And then this one again, obviously, you know, 500 plus comments is. I seem to be. I don't even know if I'm meant to do it. It's just like anytime I talk about something that I'm passionate about, it seems to get more engagement.
Yeah.
If I talk about anything,
well, it's so nuanced, isn't it? There's so many different things that we can unpack here in terms of like free speech, whether you have the right to comment as a man on, you know, women's issues and the feminist movement, whether you have a voice to be able to say how you're feeling, as long as it then doesn't offend anybody else. You know, so are we kind of second guessing what we're saying all the time so that is the case, that we can't honestly, truly say what's inside us because we have to be mindful of everybody else's sensibilities. And it's never that cut and dry. It's never as easy as saying, well, I'm going to say what I want to say and I don't care who it offends. That's not what it's all about.
definitely.
But where can we get to a point in which we can have a dialogue, a conversation, that you can say what you want to say, I can say what I want to say, and enter into that backwards and forwards of going, well, you tell me your perspective and I'll tell you my perspective, and then we get to an understanding somewhere in the middle that, you know, we may not agree at the end of the day, but we'll better have a better understanding as to each other's sensitivities around that particular subject. And it's very hard when it's the written word to actually portray exactly what it is you're feeling, because it's always going to be misconstrued. There's going to be elements in there, if you looked at it as a whole, that you could actually read it through and disseminate the elements, and you could, if you were keeping an open mind and not going on a particular word or phrases, but looking at it as a whole, I think that you would generally get the idea and the sense of what it is that you were trying to communicate. But because it was written and you don't then have the ability to come straight back with, well, this is actually how I, you know, like you would do a normal conversation, you can see somebody's eyes and they're, you know, whether they're moving in a particular way, whether they're smiling at something, you know, what the eyes are saying. It's very difficult to get those, you know, intricate details and nuances from the individual to say, well, actually, I understand what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. I get it. Yeah. This is what I was trying to say. And it's very kind of one-sided in certain respects. It is very hard to come back and say, I get it. I understand. Let's just discuss this and be open and curious about what this means and why it made you feel that way. That wasn't my intention. I understand why it made you feel that way. Let's, you know, it's
even that. So we've got a comment here, James. We've got LinkedIn user. Offence cannot be given, only taken.
Okay, what does that mean?
Offence cannot be given, only taken. Does that mean that you choose to be offended? Is that your choice to be offended? Can you even be offended?
It's simplifying. It is simplifying. I think it comes down to the intention behind what it is that you're saying. If you have good intentions, if everything there is based on your belief system and things that you're trying to just have a conversation about, if you're not there to be incendiary, you're not just putting it out just to wind people up and to create the situation where, you know, I'm going to light that blue touch paper and then I'm going to walk back and watch this whole thing explode.
Yeah, which I'm 100% not. I want to have every.
Well, I know that, but because I know you, but you can understand if people don't know you, they don't take the time to get to know you. We're all busy. We're all, you know, being pulled in lots of different directions. So we don't necessarily have the time, but it's the intention behind it to say, well, let's just have a little think a minute. What could his intentions have been? Is he looking at it from a societal perspective? And what could change to enable, you know, women to do what they want to do? If they want to go to work, they go to work. If they want to stay at home, they stay at home, but not to be judged on that decision. You know, it's, I have a wife and I have a daughter, and I can see from their perspective of like growing up the way that they are told to be as a woman in the world. We can comment, we know what it is to be a man in the world. We don't know what it is to be a woman in the world. But I see it in my parenting.
I'm not
it's
sure
like, you know, they're told to be a certain way and they're told to be not another way. You can be so far this way to conform, but don't be too far. You know, don't push it. Just rein that in a little bit. You don't want to be too attractive. You don't want to be too flirty. You don't want to be too intelligent. You don't want to be, but be intelligent enough. Be attractive enough. So, you know, these elements are there as part of this narrative that we have this awareness on. Let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Let's not sort of say, well, you don't understand.
Gender, James, or you think that's is that a human thing? No, boys are told don't be too angry, don't get angry.
Yeah.
Suppress that.
But what I'm saying is that we know what it is to be
a good little boy.
So this is my observation as a man, what I see in the way in which women are, you know, told either by their parents, by their mothers, by their fathers, things that have been passed down generation to generation, potentially not having a voice. It's like, be obedient, be subservient, be whatever, be
Someone
domestic.
told me to sit on the naughty step, the lady did, actually. It was,
Did she?
that's quite
Okay. But listen, we won't, this wasn't going to be the main topic. This was kind of
no, it's not going to be the main topic, but it will be a topic that will...
So Wednesday, we're going to delve into this in a lot more
we'll
detail.
delve into this. We'll delve into this whole concept of patriarchy. I'm very interested in that. The origins of feminism. We'll bring it from a different perspective, some alternative views, and we'll thrash that out. Just one of the other things was about, can you only see things from your own perspective? Just because you are one gender, does that mean you can speak on behalf and be the spokesperson?
Yeah. Do you have a voice?
Gender?
Is the question.
Just because you and I are both male, white, and of middle age, it doesn't mean I understand your experience, because your past is completely different to mine. You think differently to me. You've got a different personality type. You've got a different environment, a different upbringing.
Different
Everybody's got different generation. There's unlimited variables to our different situation. I can't just say James is a man. I get it, because we're filtering the world in different ways. So,
but the danger is that we're shut down. The danger is that we don't have a voice and we can't speak to the emotions that we have and how it impacts on us, because everything has a cause and effect, doesn't it? And it's never as linear as just this kind of nice, neat line from A to B. There's always this kind of meandering thing that we're going to draw in a little bit from here, a little bit from there. It's never cut and dry, and we're never going to be able to package it up really neatly and say, okay, there you go. That's it. Sorted. The difference between genders, that's been sorted. Move on. Racism, that's been sorted. Move on. It's always a conversation. It's always exploring.
It's always evolving. It's complicated, isn't it? It's complicated.
Yeah, it is.
It's complicated. Right, we've got another question here. We have all been conditioned to revere beliefs ahead of truth. Personal identity is nothing more than your own personal belief program. Beliefs get triggered. None of them has any bearing on truth. Truth just is. To be honest, I'm quite behind this statement. I completely understand where that one's coming from. I think in reality, there can be some visceral triggers that are in your unconscious, where you're reacting subconsciously to things, isn't it? It's like if somebody came up to you and, spat in your wife's face, all of a sudden, it's more than likely to be red mist, isn't it?
Totally. Totally.
So all of the calmness and the ability to see something. I know that's more of a physical alteration. It's different from potentially verbal abuse. But even with verbal abuse, we're not Buddhas, are we? We've got these intrinsic triggers. It could be something that deeply happened to you in childhood that frigging brings something back heavy.
But my sense of this, and something again that I do for myself, and this is my own lived experience around those kind of things of triggering. Now, with the best will in the world, this doesn't happen all the time. And it's still a learning curve to be able to just go, why is that making me feel so angry, so triggered, so venomous about that? And I know, there's instances where I'm in the car and I'm not even late for anything, but I'm like, people's driving just like winds me up on a particular day. On another day, I'm like waving people out. I'm saying, you come on, I'll flash you. And I'm just keeping my distance between the driver and me in front, all of those kind of things on any given day. it's never, again, this kind of consistent, like, yeah, everything in the world is amazing. But it's just going, well,
are you
what is
choosing
going on
that,
right
James,
now?
or is it semantics? So are you choosing to feel that way, or is it making you feel? There's somebody, because there's a difference, isn't there? Can anybody make you feel anything?
Of course
That's probably. Or
absolutely, they can situationally.
Or do
So
you choose to do
situationally, again, it's this thing that it's like, if there's not an awareness there that you're going to be triggered by a myriad of stuff, it could be a look, it could be a comment, it could be whatever, depending on how you feel about yourself inside.
Yeah.
Now, this is the work that if you've gotten to a place where you actually feel comfortable in your own skin, you don't necessarily, certainly there's always going to be that level of caring what people think of you, because that's just, I guess, normal, unless you're, you know, a psychopath, let's say, and that's a throwaway term right there. But there's always going to be that element that you do have the care, consciousness about what people think, but not sufficient that it will stop you operating in the world with a level of calm and being able to do this like sort of lives. It's, you know, we don't know who's watching, we don't know what the situation is, but we're able to come on and do a live like this and just talk openly because of the stage that we're at in life, that we are okay with this stuff. It's not, you know, constricting us so much that we can't do something like this.
Yeah.
So sure, people are going to trigger. People like that action, like somebody spitting in your face or your partner's face, and it's a visceral reaction at that moment in time. If somebody breaks suddenly in front of you, seemingly for no reason, it's that adrenaline, the adrenals start to kind of kick in. It's a natural reaction to a situation that is out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But when you're taking it to a different level of, you know, a comment or something that somebody said, and then other people then start to kind of fuel that fire, and they're bringing that, and it just builds and builds and builds, very much like that kind of road rage situation. It's like either you just tip over the edge and you can't stop, or you have that ability to go, okay, what's going on right now? This is a little bit scary, how I'm feeling. It's making me feel really uncomfortable, really vulnerable. I'm feeling really quite tired by this now. I feel like drained of energy. If it's bringing the energy down, more than likely it's something that's, you know, to do with your past, to do with something that happened previously that's been sort of calcified over time and is now presenting itself in this particular, and you might not even know what it is. And again, there is the work to be able to discover what it is that's making you feel like that right now.
And there's that gap between your, you know, the stimulus and response, isn't there? I guess.
Yeah.
Probably the wider that can get is part of your work in terms of being able to regulate your emotional state. Because if you knew somebody was crazy and they were shouting at you, you wouldn't really take it to heart, would you? Or if you knew that person was, you know, dying inside.
But it's taking the time to find that out. You know, if all you're looking at is that face comment or that surface stuff, and you don't take the time to scratch underneath the surface and empathize, or to find out about that person as to why they are saying what they're saying. It's that whole curtain thing. Once the curtain's been pulled back, you can't pull it back the other way. It's the understanding of people's behaviors.
Yeah, that's what I had. You know, people coming for me, criticizing me. And I looked at their page, and then sounds egoic in some way, but I felt bad. You know, I felt sorry for that person. I could see there was, you know, something. There was hurt, and there was pain there. I get it.
It doesn't come from nowhere. It does not come from nowhere. There's always,
it doesn't excuse behavior,
reason.
Though, does it? You can't just project and do what you want to do.
Well, this is the thing. It's those then healthy boundaries to say, look, I'm not going to accept this behavior
because you feel bad.
And their pain is not your pain.
Yeah.
You know, that is their burden and it's not your responsibility to take that on. But there's an empathy behind it that doesn't then mean that you have to engage and be in that sort of way as kind of stoking this thing. You can make your views known, you can state your case, you can defend yourself and advocate for yourself to say, look, this is not behavior that I'm happy with. And it's your choice then to step away.
Yeah. And it is weird, isn't it, James, with these online interactions? Because I think guys have got a sort of hidden code of conduct, probably especially in real life. Because with men, there is always the risk of violence. So there is a little bit of a hidden code with men. Like there's buttons that you don't really touch. We're sort of wary in that case of violence, whereas online it's just people would just say exactly stuff they would never say to you face to face. And it's like,
just the level of anonymity, I guess, and the emboldenment that you wouldn't say to somebody's face.
You wouldn't say to somebody's face at all. It's just like, man, But again, it's an interesting experiment. It's a whole social experiment, isn't it? This is a massive social experiment, and even putting out posts, articles, getting instant feedback. It's a stressful time. People are under pressure. Things can be misconstrued. And listen, there's loads of women out there who have been oppressed. There's loads of systems that have put them in difficult positions. I know there is plenty of guys that are absolute dicks, 100%, that I would look and say, man, you might have your excuses or your own path or journey for being the way you are, but it's no surprise you've given some men a bad rap for certain things in terms of oppression and things like that. But I think the other side is when people are advocates, just be careful not to shoot people down that are on your own team. People are on your side. Not everybody's trying to bring you down and ruin your life and control you. I know that might feel like it, but that's not always the case. So I think for men and women, there's definitely some lessons learned there, James. We'll leave it there. We'll move on.
We're always learning, mate. We're always learning.
From one war to another, from war on motherhood to the war in Ukraine, James. What the hell is going on at the moment? So we got Keir Starmer, who wants to get involved with some peace talks now. So it looks like things are changing in the Ukraine. Trump's making some moves, isn't he, in terms of what he's
got a meeting with Putin, I think, set up pretty shortly, hasn't he, to engage in dialogue. I think Keir Starmer had pledged £3 billion a year for the next 3 years in aid of Ukraine. Am I getting that right?
2 years on the 24th since the Ukraine war started. So it looks like we've got, say, around 43,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed, 370,000 injured. Then we've got essentially 57,000 Russians. 115,000 Russians killed. 500,000 wounded. 12,500 civilian deaths. It's pretty bad. Isn't it? We hate these numbers, really. I just reeled them off, but it doesn't really do it justice, does it, James, in terms of these are people's majority, it's people's sons, isn't it, that are getting wiped
well, that's it. When you just kind of read it out as stats, those are numbers, aren't they? But
think
about
the
human cost and why it's just senseless over territory, over history. And when you think about the whole, I was thinking about this the other day in terms of borders, nationalities, languages, identity that we hold, what it is to be British, what it is to be an Afghan? What is it to be Russian, American? And that sense of identity and traditions, even food that people eat, very much traditional, and this sense of identity that we hold on to so completely, and that nationalism that would enable us to do things like this. It's like, think of how many Russian soldiers agreed with this conflict, but didn't have a choice.
No, I reckon a lot of them were, what's the word, subscripted? Is that the word? Into
press ganged into it.
Yeah, so you haven't got a choice. If you're at the sort of working man's age to go in, then you'll probably be chucked in prison if you don't go and fight in this war. You know, my wife's a doctor, and at one point when it kicked off, we thought the doctors were going to be pulled into that, and she potentially could have been on the front line. Luckily, we was staying abroad at the time, so she wasn't part of that. But she easily, it was a worry. It was a worry for family members. It was a worry for my wife in that situation as well. So that, you can't imagine it, can you? That your own child or your father or whatever is going to be pulled into some war in a land that could be hundreds and hundreds of miles away. You don't even know what this war is about. No idea, really. You just turn up, and these people are getting mowed down, aren't they? Like Trump said, he said it's like an open field, flat.
It's tragic.
Hundreds of thousands of people injured. It's very, but it goes to show, James. Look at that, what we just said with the posting online, how triggered people get about that, and how viscerally angry they can get. Imagine what it's like at a large scale. Is it emotional intelligence, James? On a large scale?
I think it's a sense of, if this is what it feels like to me, and this is just my opinion, that powerlessness. It's a lack of agency to be able to change outcomes. And you think about, well, what can I do? Feeling ineffectual, I think, is possibly one of the worst feelings you can experience, of just not being able to control the outcomes. And, if you don't have a sense of agency in that respect, then you'll look elsewhere, outside, to blame why you're in that situation, potentially. And that can take any form. And I speak from experience. And it's that awareness piece of being able to go, okay, so who's the common denominator? Well, the common denominator is me. So what do I do about it? And all I can influence is myself and how I'm responding right now. That's the only thing I've got power over. I can't control how you think. I can't control how anybody else thinks. I can just control how I'm responding right now. And if you start there, you're in with a good chance.
Yeah. But really, it's in a sort of overview systemically. It looks like it's more power plays for resources, isn't it? So natural resources. I think Ukraine's in one of the top 5 for metal resources in the world. So it seems a lot of the strategic stuff around the Middle East and these countries is to do with
power plays. It's power plays, and they know that they have to get hold of those resources in order to survive.
Yeah, well, that's the belief, isn't it? That
that's
they have to get hold of these resources to survive. Otherwise,
and you can wrap it up in any way, shape, or form for that propaganda to make sense.
Amazing how new all of this stuff is, though, James, isn't it? In terms of country names, the idea of a country. We used to sort of nomadic living, maybe 100 people in a tribe. They wasn't going around saying, "Oh, I'm from Great Britain." I mean, this is relatively new. I'll have to look back and see. Maybe it's like 10,000 years type of thing. Probably,
but it's fascinating that at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all Homo erectus. We are these people with brains, bodies, and yet we can be so divisive and so judgmental because they don't look like us, or they don't behave like us. We're all human beings. We're all on this planet together. And that's where perspective comes in. It's like, if we're in an environmental crisis, which we'll be talking about tomorrow with James Collier, it's like, if that goes to shit, then we're all fucked anyway. So, and then we'll all be human beings together then. And there's the irony that when it all goes to shit, that we're then suddenly all human beings in it together.
Yeah.
Because it affects everybody. But until that point, until there's a global disaster, we're all very, very much individuals.
Yeah, I think they would say, like, after 9/11, the amount of camaraderie, the love, the support, everybody it was a real galvanizing, obviously horrific situation. But strangely, it put things into context, didn't it? Those type of situations. But again, I could say there's other countries I know, like Armenia, they're still generationally traumatized, whether that's a belief system or not.
Yeah.
But from
and look, we have to again be aware that we've had a comfortable life.
Relatively,
generally speaking, we've had a very, very comfortable life. We've not had to deal with conflict. We haven't had to go to war.
Yeah.
You and I personally have not ever had that, where we've known hunger, oppression, deprivation, any of those things.
Yeah,
so, if we want to bandy the term around privileged, well, we've had it pretty good up until now. So we can look at it through that lens. And yet there's people that have known utter devastation and persecution and never known what it is to live in peace and not in fear. So again, taking our perspective of saying, well, just take a beat, just have a little think about what it is. It just doesn't apply. We have the luxury of being able to do that. But even as we are now in the luxury that we live in, we still don't do it because it's all relative. It's all relative. And we can't beat ourselves up about it because it's just not our lived experience. But there is perspective to be had here.
And there is a thing, generational, there's a generational trauma or a set of incessant beliefs that are pushed down. It's not just probably beliefs, it's probably neurological as well in terms of the fear responses and things like that, isn't it? It's probably like a survival mechanism at some point.
There's good research about
from the Jewish
generational trauma,
from the Black communities. I get it. I can understand when I'm speaking to maybe Black people in America. All they might just see me as a white guy. Even if I'm making a valid point, there could be just so much underneath that in terms of generational trauma and oppression that it does affect how people act in the here and now, doesn't it? If you don't understand the historical context of where that person's at, it doesn't excuse behavior in the
no,
but you do start to grasp an understanding and the nuance of that type of behavior. And again, are we going to have that with the Ukraine? Are we going to have years and years of now? Have we just built up a whole century of resentment and trauma for each other, and then those kids are now going to carry on and grow up to feel like they want some type of revenge? And that is the problem, isn't it? When you have these cycles, like an eye for an eye becomes an infinite eye for an eye, doesn't it?
Mm.
keeps
But
going.
it's interesting when you look through history, if you think, well, the big players, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, there seems to be this kind of cycle of these types of individuals that are in the right place at the right time. Now, that's an interesting perspective, saying the right place at the right time. But, they were there at a time where, especially with Hitler, that in terms of financial unrest, they're in depression. They needed someone to galvanize, or a community to galvanize against, to be able to have this resurgence of, creating this Uber Germany again. And it's just plays out through history that these people, now with our modern sensibilities, wouldn't look at it in the same way. But, the raw materials, I think, are the same, of individuals that do rise above the parapet. And, we look to them and see them as ultra humans and, unrelatable, that the things that they do are superhuman, and then put them on the pedestal and revere them. And, but they're humans. Again, they're human beings.
It's very true. Yeah. And worrying how we are so susceptible to groupthink as well, I think.
Those power struggles, when you think, why have you got power over me? What gives you the right to have power and agency over me? Just because you've got money, just because you've got position, why does that give you the right to dictate what I do with my life when we're all human beings?
Yeah.
The alternative, then people would argue, well, that's anarchy.
Anarchy, that's the problem, isn't it? So where do you draw the line? And again, most of the assets are in the hands of the very few, aren't they, James? So in real terms, most of us are controlled, whether you like it or not, or
like it or not,
you've got choice.
If you think, do you really? There's the question.
Do you really? Is it just an illusion? Because there's probably very few people who would, what they would say, maybe escaped the Matrix, and even then it would be questionable, wouldn't it? You can't just
mate.
There's definitely different hierarchies there, but
I just go back to how you can control your own emotions. It's like that's all you've got agency over, is how you deal with what's in front of you.
Yeah. How do you deal with uncertainty, James? What can people do to get through these times where there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of pain?
Have a conversation. Have a conversation. Get somebody else's perspective. When you're inside your own head with stuff, you can really go down some dark rabbit holes and ruminate. And when you've only got your own thoughts inside your head, you're going to come up with the same conclusions. So I would have a conversation with other people. Again, be open, curious, to get a different perspective. And depending on who your circle of friends are or people that you know, try to look at a variety of viewpoints. If you're only getting the same as you, then that then feeds into that sort of groupthink. So if you can get a variety of, people that have maybe a different perspective, maybe there's one that's more optimistic, maybe there's one that's pessimistic, but, getting that sort of overview, I think just gives you some reference point. And also sitting with those emotions as well, just thinking, why is that making me feel so anxious? What is that right now? Where does that come from? Is it this actual evidence and what's going on, or am I projecting into the future? Am I catastrophizing about something that hasn't happened yet? And what's that all about?
Yeah. There's just that Tony Robbins would say your level of happiness is in direct correlation to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with.
Yeah. So, and like I said, on any given day, that sounds so bloody sorted, but on any given day.
Yeah, it's like a nice quote on the wall, but
yeah, yeah, James has got it sorted. Fuck no.
Subjective.
But it's
difficult to, what is happiness? What is that feeling? You know, what is good
and it's practice. It's practice just trying to change the patterns and just going, I usually do that. Maybe I'll try something different today.
Yeah, it's a funny one because there's a flip side of taking action, and then there's sometimes just being, isn't it? Just being with yourself is a form of action, I guess. So it's sitting with it and just feeling the emotion, or it's time to take some action, and then the progress then alleviates the feeling of anxiety, fear.
Yeah.
It's the movement.
Sometimes I will distract, you know, intuitively I'll distract myself. Yeah. And then it's like, then you're in that kind of loop. Yeah. And again, one of the things that I would advocate for is trying not to distract yourself.
And watch programs like this, James. I think a nice balanced view of opinions where it's not too, you know, it's different, but it's not too myopic. It's not too biased. We haven't got any billionaires funding us.
No.
Yet. Before we change our narrative on everything we say to
before we sell out,
make money. Yeah. So watch us before we sell out. That's what we would say to them. But uncertainty, I think it's going to come, James, isn't it? It's coming thick and fast. We've got the AI revolution. I'm watching a lot of Gary's Economics at the moment, which is a great YouTube channel, and he's just talking about certain trajectories in the economy and really understanding the mechanics of how everything's working behind the scenes and why it's going in a certain way. And it feels as though we're hitting a tipping point of potentially a lot of change. That can bring a hell of a lot of challenge. I've been speaking to people in the US that have lost jobs because of the Department of Government efficiency, and they said it's a real struggle there at the moment. So if you optimize and you automate things, but you don't have that safety net in society, or people are, you're not generating jobs as you're not generating enough jobs for them to be people to just walk in and do them when they're being replaced by other means. You're going to create a lot of instability. It's not just in people's heads. It is actually a reality, isn't it, James? So I get it.
It is, my man.
It's hard, but sometimes you think, oh, what can you do? What can you do on an individual basis? And that's where we're trying to navigate and find solutions. We're actually asking the questions, like, what can be done? Yes, there is challenge, but what's something practical that can be done? Can you affect politics? How do you do it? Do you have to start up a local group? Do you pool some money? Do you do crowdfunding? Do you, I don't know, do you start a revolution? You got to start, eventually you've got to try and take back some power, haven't you, to think, what can you practically do? Because if you're just sitting there thinking it's just the way it is, it's just reality, then it's not, though, is it? Because somebody else creates that reality.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
It's agency, isn't it? Comes down to actually, again, the feeling of either you've got a sense of power that you can affect change, or you're powerless and ineffectual.
I always think of that with royalty, James, and I think, on one hand, I don't like the concept. I think it's institutionalized inequality. But on the other hand, I think, oh, fair play to you. You've just made it up, and you've convinced everybody it's a thing. It's genius, isn't it?
Don't question it.
I'm the king, and God made me the king, and everyone believes it. And you've actually gone and done
just
that.
Quite happy to sort of bubble along with it. Oh, it's the king.
I'm sitting there thinking that's That's quite good what you've done there.
But again, this is how my brain works. I just think he's just another human being.
Yeah.
But it's the
Thing.
hierarchy of the way society is set up, that there's almost these pillars of society that we make sense of the world in this way. That's the king, that's the queen, those are the princes, the princesses, these are this is the pageantry, this is feeding into my sense of identity as an English person, a Brit, whatever, and I recognize that person as being he or she is, and I can move on now to the next thing. But like at the end of the day, these are just human beings. And because of birth, because of these institutions, there has to be certain protocols, and you can't shake their hand or you can't make contact because of who they are, and you certainly can't give them a hug. I think, oh, okay, but I can hug that other person, but I can't hug them. Or I can shake their hand, but I can't shake their hand.
And because everyone of who they believes are. It, which is the magic, isn't it? It is. It's incredible, to be honest. What they've
and they're just a human being.
Yeah. What an incredible piece of whether it's marketing, manipulation, brainwashing, whichever way.
Yeah.
You look at
and I know if we were to meet them tomorrow, we would have the same reaction as everybody else. It'd be like, bow, curtsy.
I wouldn't, James.
Observe protocols.
No way I'm
you would.
100%.
You would.
They came
you
to
bow,
the football.
you bow low.
The Queen came to the football stadium. I was not. I'm not a royalist.
You were first there, mate. You were first there.
I would never take a
would you have an MBE or an OBE or something like that if it was bestowed on you?
I wouldn't take it. For me, I would reject it. There's no way
out of principle.
I wouldn't be MBE, OBE.
Sir John Hastings, mate, that's got a ring to it, though, dude.
It sounds.
Sir John
good.
Hastings.
Oh, it does. Duke.
Oh, mate, I could get on board with that.
To be honest,
Knight of the Realm.
I know it does sound.
You're softening. I can see you're softening now.
Should I just
John
compromise?
Hastings.
Fuck values.
I'll take it for you, mate.
I'm going to take it. Sir John Duke the Knight Hastings.
Oh, mate, Esquire. You could put an ESQ after your name.
I want sprawling lands and peasants.
As far as the eye can see, all of that is mine.
It's all mine, and I sit in my castle and go to the House of Lords and just
just count my gold.
Yeah, it does. I'm not going to lie, James.
It's becoming appealing, mate, isn't it? I've sold it to you.
I get it. I'm not immune to the comforts of status and what can we call it?
You could go and book a table in a restaurant without any issues. Just drop the name in there.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to lie, James. You could sell it to me. It would be a. What sort of resolve have I got?
Very little.
Do I hold on to my principles and my values?
When it suits.
To be honest, I really do. I looked up the list of people who do turn down these knighthoods and things. I do think that's quite cool.
But is that inverse? Is that a kind of an inverted snobbery?
Yeah,
isn't it?
It is an inverted snobbery. Yeah,
that's a statement in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you turn it down.
So what are you saying by turning it down?
It is that, yeah. Man, I'm full of contradictions. I kind of like the pomp as well, don't you?
But we're never 100%, are we?
There's some. I get it. I really do get it. But would I rather families not have to use food banks and there be, they're not having to pay crazy rents on properties, and they own their properties, and children are looked after properly, and we invest. Would I would swap it tomorrow. I'd get rid of the POM.
So do you think the two can't coexist then?
If I'm honest, I don't think they can. I think that inequality, which is widening, is pervasive in society. And
well, if you believe that the royal family are great for tourism,
yeah, because I've had that argument. Yeah,
identity of the UK is intrinsically linked to that, and people come to do business in the UK. They come to be a tourist in the UK as a direct result of that. If that could be funneled into eradicating the need for,
I would just say have an opt-in or opt-out system. If you want any of your taxpayer money to go towards that, then maybe it's like a shareholder thing where you pay towards it, you get the benefits of something coming back. It's probably ridiculously hard to do. You probably can't do it, but I wouldn't mind an opt-out option. Would you opt out?
I would opt in.
You would opt in to pay for it?
Yeah.
For what reason?
Sure. I just think it's the right thing to do.
Seriously? For no reason, just because it represents the country, or?
Yeah, I think so. You've got to consider, if it wasn't there, would you miss it? What kind of a hole would it leave?
I honestly don't think it'll make any difference at all. King Charles doesn't come into my conscience at any point or have any influence on business. It probably does internally because he's.
But not for you. Not for you.
But in terms of, I honestly, James, I don't think it will be missed one iota.
I think you'd be surprised, mate. That's just my opinion, but I think you would be surprised.
Yeah.
I think if you scratch beneath the surface, there's still a level of kind of sentimentality about it, and again,
there is.
If it wasn't there, again, it's a foundational piece. I think it would be very unsettling.
Well, not royal families are not really lasting out, are they? Russian royal family didn't do very well. Americans haven't got a royal family. I think it's on a trajectory of dying now.
Well, when you look at, as an example, America, America only has presidents and first ladies, or first men, no female presidents just yet.
Yeah. I think it's going to become, we'll watch this space, but I think as inequality rises, there's going to be bigger and bigger questions asked about these type of things. So I reckon it will cause a drama, I would say.
I think if you really scratch beneath the surface, there's an underlying, if you really push people, I think there's a level of pride in that in terms of identity. Subconscious, I would say. You're going to get people that are staunch royalists and will have the Union Jacks outside, and at every coronation they will be there, and if any royal wedding, they absolutely love it. And there's other people
very
I wouldn't consider myself to be a royalist, but it's part of the identity, it's part of the landscape, and if it wasn't there, I think it would cause unease.
Yeah, I think you'll 100% believe the absolute opposite on this one, James.
Okay, good. That makes me happy.
So tomorrow, James, we've got James Collier, co-founder of Huel. I do love it, Huel, James. Jesus, it's like that liquid gold, isn't it? Taste.
So I have my unflavored, unsweetened Huel, which I add to my banana, my linseed, a bit of cacao powder, and I mix it up, and it's great.
It's lots to talk about. The food system's changing, isn't it? It's changed a lot over the years. Sort of post World War II, it's changed a lot. And
food insecurity and
a lot more processed food. And then we'll talk about what is processed foods anyway. There's different types of processing, and everything's probably processed on some level now. And what is a balanced diet? Obviously, the health of the general population, I would say, is people are living longer because medical interventions and drugs. Are they actually healthier in terms of weight, cancer rates, diabetes, heart conditions?
Well, it brings into question sort of lifespan, so we're living longer, but then throw into the mix health span. So it's all well and good living longer, but if your health isn't good, then what's the point?
What's the point?
Well, cognitively,
coma, couldn't you, living for 100 years? But
so it's not about living longer; it's about healthy years. So it's how we can live longer, or spreading out the healthy years that we can live, quality of life, because it's pointless living to a ripe old age and cognitively not compos mentis.
And how do these products fit into the ecosystem? Are they facilitating this problem?
I see it as an additional. It's filling a gap. I think it's filling a nutritional gap that you can get as opposed to just going down the junk food route or grabbing something that's easy. Usually takes the form of a chocolate bar or something that's densely calorific. To actually make something like that it's a better choice. I'm not saying it's the ideal choice, but it's just a better choice.
Natural could be subjective. Maybe the future of food is like a little food tablet, and that's all. You don't really need
science
to
fiction
in the future. You'll probably be genetically modified at birth, and you maybe take little food tablets. Probably more. It could be, couldn't it, James? It could be like. I wouldn't
want to be in the restaurant industry. That's for sure.
No, maybe we haven't got to be spinning through space or in some weird third dimension. Maybe eating might be quite boring for us. So
I think 1 o'clock's a weird dimension, mate. Every day, isn't it, for us?
It's the 4th or 5th or 6th dimension, isn't it? It should be an interesting conversation. Obviously, we've been business owners for a long time, and James is a business owner, and he's obviously been part of something that's grown into £500 million business, which is just insane, isn't it? That journey of being part of something that's so big is also interesting, as well as the nutrition side. So
we're gonna have to scratch beneath the surface.
So guys, come and check it out tomorrow. James Collier, co-founder of Huel, at 1 p.m. live. You can come ask questions, DM us, or you can ask questions at the time, and then we'll go through them live.
Anything you want to ask, let us know.
Exactly. Then we'll be coming up. We'll probably dig into the feminism talks.
Okay.
Later in the week.
I'm warming up.
Brace yourself. Maybe we should have a couple of ladies on the panel at the same time.
I might turn up in a full suit of armor for that one.
Yeah.
Like those, those suits that the guys that train attack dogs. That didn't sound right, did it? That didn't sound right. I'm going to retract that.
Now, hopefully, we're going to keep it calm, keep it real, and we all want the same thing. We want everyone to be sort of loved, connected, cared for, respected, progress. Hopefully, we all want those things deep down. And oppression and all that stuff, abuse, it's normally rooted in a lot of fear and pain, isn't it? So We want happy, healthy environments for people and kids to grow up in. So hopefully we can work towards that and find some common ground, James. Okay, sir?
100%.
You take
Fabulous.
care. See you tomorrow, guys.
Love to all. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.